We need to recognize that, first and foremost, disability is not unchristian. Mental disability or physical disability is not unchristian. It's not evidence that God does not love us. Disability is not a sin, and it's not a consequence of sin. We need to find ways to welcome people with mental health issues into our churches, people with physical disabilities as well, obviously, into our churches, not only so that we can serve people with those issues, but also so that we can be served by them. They have very specific and particular perspectives on the world that are valuable to us as Christians, that we can attend to, listen to, and that can help us to grow in our relationship with God. So I think we should be very welcoming in our communities as much as possible.
And you make such a good point. As I was doing research, someone pointed out mental health is something all of us have. We have mental capacity, and we have to maintain our health when it comes to how we think, how we process. And so obviously there are illnesses, and there's depression and anxiety, and obviously those are things that we need to focus on. I'm going to stay with you, Colin. Is there pressure for Christians to always be happy? And maybe we're not having a conversation just about mental health and mental well-being?
I think that that is true. I think that there are certain versions of theology that lend themselves to that way of thinking. That if everything isn't perfect in my life, that somehow I've done something wrong, or I'm letting God down, and so these are the things that are happening to me. That's an unfortunate form of theology that sort of leaks into our churches sometimes. Sometimes we also over spiritualize mental health. Many of these things that we're talking about are physical issues, often in our brains. They aren't necessarily a response of to faithfulness or unfaithfulness. They're things that are happening to us. And so I think that one of the paths forward, I hope, for us as churches is to take very seriously the advice of mental health professionals, to talk to people who have actual education, training, capacity in these issues, to help maybe correct some of these faulty presuppositions that have maybe leaked into our theology over the years.
Yeah. Children's hospitals in Canada have seen a 100% increase in mental health related admissions. Julia, do you think there's still a stigma around mental health in the church?
Yeah, I just want to applaud what Colin said. I think it is so true. There's a group I follow on Facebook, and they posted a T-shirt that said it's okay to have Jesus and a therapist too, which is meant to be cute, but at the same time sends such an important message to the church. Because I know when I was growing up as a teenager, finding my way in the church, those messages that Colin talked about were so prevalent, and I think that has done a lot of harm. I think we've also come a really long way, though. So we're now at the place where we can talk more openly about these things, and our churches should be places where we can be safe, where they are authentic, vulnerable spaces. We can be real about our struggles, where people look out for us, support us, encourage us to talk, and seek professional help when that's needed. These things are such important elements of this early warning and detection system when something might be amiss in our lives. So I think it's just so important. Everything that Colin just said is so important. And we are starting to see that, I think, but we have a ways to go yet.
Yeah. Julia, sticking with you, while the church can support someone struggling with mental health, sometimes professional help, as we've talked about, is needed. Are the resources available for people seeking help? And I say this because we just had a really fascinating conversation with Daniel Whitehead from Sanctuary, which is a ministry for churches when it comes to mental health. And he said, I hope 10 years from now that we're not saying that was a fad, that we're no longer talking about mental health, that we've moved forward. So do you feel that there are the right resources? And I'm talking again to the church, that we're really accessing the right resources to make sure that this is a constant conversation?
Oh boy. I think the work has started.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that. I think it's just a fact that the population generally often struggles to get timely access to supports when it comes to mental health. And so I think that's also true in the church. And we're also, if we're starting behind in terms of being able to really talk about it openly, in that way in the church, we probably have those hurdles to overcome also. But I hope that it is an ongoing focus for us in the church and as a society. I feel like I always come back to this topic, Maggie, but it is so important right now. Every year, Canadians come together in this really deliberate way to say to those who are struggling with their mental health, hey, you matter. You are loved, you're valued, you're seen, and our families, our communities are better off with you in them. So if you are struggling, please reach out. There is hope and there is help. And that is such an important and life-giving message. But what we saw last Bell Let's Talk Day was at the very same time this was happening, there was a conversation going on in the government about that in a few years' time, we would expand access to medical assistance in dying to people who are struggling from mental illness alone. And that sends a really different message. Yeah. So instead of there is help and hope and we want and need you in our lives and communities, it offers an off-ramp. So I think in light of that, and in light of what we have seen with the pandemic, just sort of surfacing or exacerbating mental health issues in so many people, we have to be so alive to this conversation right now.
Such a great point. It's so many nuances when it comes to mental health. And you're right. I mean, MAID plays such a big role in that.